with me, your man, Louie T, here on the Draft Prospects 101 series, your guide to some of the biggest and hottest names of the 2025 NFL Draft. We're talking edge rushers and another deep group in this draft class, much like the running back position. The top end talent, not as great. However, the depth of the position and how many players you can get ups the total value of the position itself in this year's draft class. The defensive line and running back position, you could argue, are the two best positions in this upcoming draft, top to bottom. And edge rusher is probably in the next tier down, along with tight end and an interior offensive line, right? So there's some quality football players that you're going to find at edge rusher in this draft, similar to the running back position. Now, this is something that I always feel like I need to say with edge rusher in particular, because if there's one position that I struggle with on a yearly basis in the draft, projecting guys, is edge rusher. And not because I have a preference, just like everyone else. When you see a certain player, they either fit what you look for in an edge rusher or they don't, right? But to me, the reason why I struggle with this position more than any other in the draft, this and linebacker in particular, this position, though, I struggle with because this requires projection more than any other position to me in the entire draft, right? Because most positions, you see the talent, you can see what a guy can provide for you. And with edge rusher, there are guys, countless guys that have come in with little to no production. And I'm one of those very practical people that I need to see it to believe it. I need to see it first to know what it can then look like at the next level. This is where evaluators truly make their money, is the ability to see a guy, see what he can be, and don't get hung up and caught up on what he hasn't done, but what rather he can do moving forward with proper coaching, right? Edge rusher is one of those positions where sometimes you go off of athletic exploits more so than production because of what the guy can be. I struggle with that because I want to see hands-on application of what you can provide at the next level. And you don't always get that. And I've learned and I've adjusted and I've gotten better at this, but it's still a work in progress for me as to how to look at a guy, see the raw athletic exploits that he brings to the table and say, hey, this guy can project to this at the next level. And obviously, if you know what you're looking for and what it looks like and what this guy could potentially be in your system or scheme or in a certain look, then obviously it's going to help you evaluate at a higher clip. For me, being that I don't have a defensive scheme, I'm just looking to see what a guy can do at the next level. Does this trait in particular translate? Sometimes it's a little tough, especially when there's no production, but I've gotten better at kind of figuring out how I feel about all of that. But with that said, let's get through the edge rushers in this draft, talk about what guys they can bring to the table, where I see them fitting, et cetera, and what are their comps at the NFL level. So I spoke about guys with limited production, and we're going to get to some of those guys here, but we're going to go through this list. And today we're going to talk about edge rushers 18 through 10. Okay, we'll get all the way to 10. We'll save our top 9 edge rushers for tomorrow's show. So before we get to the top 18 or 18 through 10, I just want to throw in an extra name that's not in my list, but I'm not a big fan of his, which is why he's not in my top 18. But I could have gone to 20. I probably should have gone to 20, but 18 was fine by me. Jack Sawyer, not in my list. He is a solid edge rusher, try hard guy. He feels like a prototypical Ohio State edge rusher to me, in the sense of he's Sam Hubbard to me, right? 6'4", 6'5", 260, 265. Doesn't, a little bit stiff, nothing special to him, gonna give you maximum effort, gonna get cleanup sacks. Every now and again, he'll throw you a bone, but for the most part, physical edge setter in the running game, gonna be rough and rugged, but not gonna move the needle much. That's how I view Jack Sawyer. So, in case you were wondering, that's my Jack Sawyer synopsis, right? So at number 18, I have Ole Miss edge rusher Jared Ivey. Now, Ivey is 6'6", 274. He is a guy that obviously, and the thing about edge rushers, they come in all shapes, sizes, and forms. So whether you're looking for the undersized situational pass rusher, you're looking for the big physical edge setting 5-tech, or you're looking for the speed disruptive rusher off the edge that can get to the quarterback, there's something here for everyone. Ivey kind of meshes a couple of things together, but he and his teammate at Ole Miss, they bother me a little bit. Ivey, I feel like there were moments where I watched him and I'm like, wow, this guy is super disruptive. He's in the opposition's backfield. He can be a problem. And then there are times where I watch him and he's invisible. Same can be said for his teammate. We'll be talking about him very shortly here in Prince Umanmielen. These guys, I feel like, can be a lot more productive than they showed in college. But there's something to be said about guys whose motors don't necessarily run hot all the time. And, and what I've learned in the NFL, in particular at the edge rushing position, is I just want your motor to run hot. I want you to go in there, empty the tank, because we got other guys that we can sub in and out. So when you're out there, give me 110%. This isn't like corner or receiver where you're staying on the field, practically the entire time. So you got to balance. When do I, push the throttle all the way and give it maximum effort, or do I take this play off, conserve some energy in case they try to run a go ball on me a snap or two from now, right? Corners have to make those type of decisions. Plays away from me, probably don't need me on this one. I'll tread lightly. I'm not going to just absolutely mail it in on the back end, but I'm not dying to get over there, right? Edge rushers, no, right? Play runs away from you, I still want to see you, hauling ass trying to get there. You just never know what's going to happen, right? And again, unlike corners who aren't coming off the field, you can catch your breath, right? You can sub out. You can tell them, I need a break. They'll come and get you, right? So if a play starts front side and you're lagging ass on the backside and they cut it back, well, you could have been there and you could have prevented that play from going for 63 yards. Instead, it went for a touchdown, and it doesn't look good. That's what a lot of people used to do with Chase Young, right? Chase Young loafing on the backside of a play. It cuts back. He's not there. He's jogging the whole time. You're like, whoa, that's really bad effort. You see that with Jared Ivey sometimes. And you see a guy that, like I said, his talents suggest he should be disruptive a lot more than what I saw on tape. There were games where he absolutely was a man amongst boys, and then there were games where I didn't even know he was on the field. And I just don't think his talents should allow that to happen, especially if he's not getting double teamed consistently. But I think also what's going to be key for him at the next level is usage, because Ole Miss used him all over the place, right? Stand up at defensive end. They kick him inside. You play a little 3-tech. They moved him around. He'd stand up, mug the A-gap. They'd move him all over the place. So he was sort of a chess piece for them. And for as big as he is, he has the movement skills to do some of those things. So it's going to be interesting to see where he ends up. My comp for him is Emmanuel Ogbah, the longtime Miami Dolphin. I wonder if he's still in Miami right now as we speak. Former Oklahoma State Cowboy, drafted into the NFL, I want to say he was drafted by the Browns, I think, and then ended up in Miami, where he probably was his most productive in his NFL career. Similar size, similar dimensions, similar effort. There at one point, Emmanuel Agba seemed like his trajectory was on the up and up, and that he could eventually be a double-digit sack getter. I think he had gotten as high as 8.5 sacks at one point, and then he kind of fizzled out. Right, he flattened out, and the trajectory arrow started to point sideways, and then eventually down, which is where we are right now in his career. But I see a lot of similarities with Jared Ivey. I think what's really going to be key for him, because some guys are scheme diverse, right? It doesn't really matter where you put them, they're going to succeed, they're going to have an impact. I think he is a little bit more dependent on where you put him. Like, again, Jared Ivey feels like he feels like he belongs in the AFC North to me. Feels like a Cleveland Brown, feels like a Baltimore Raven or a Pittsburgh Steeler. Not a Bengal, right? He's not a Bengal because they play more so a base, 4-3. And I don't know if he's your traditional fit. Like, he's a guy that should be standing up on the edge, moving around a little bit. You get a little bit more flexibility and freedom in those defensive schemes. Cleveland is more traditional, but they play that wide 9 with their defensive coordinator. I think he probably could thrive in a wide 9 alignment as well. So Emmanuel Agba is what I see there. He's my number 18 is Jared Ivey. Going into number 17, a guy that I don't necessarily love him, but I think part of why I don't love him is just the way he was utilized. I don't think he's your stand-up traditional edge rusher. I think he's probably going to be better served putting his hand in the dirt and probably being a 5 tech somewhere, right? But again, or a base 4-3 defensive end. But, when I think of a guy standing up, I think of a guy that's highly athletic, that can move around. And Jordan Burch is actually athletic for his size, but it doesn't necessarily translate into him doing anything of note, if you ask me. So Jordan Burch out of Oregon is the next edge rusher on the list. 6'4" and an eighth, 279 pounds. So you're talking about a guy that's 6'4", 280 essentially. And some of the things he was able to do at Oregon were, I don't want to say amazing, but for his size at 280, the way he moves is pretty damn impressive. And again, a lot of what they asked him to do was standing up in a 2-point stance and rushing off the edge. And generally, you don't see a lot of 280-pound guys being asked to do that. That said, he looked weird at 280 standing up. And I felt like his impact was minimal. He's a guy that's extremely physical at the point of attack, a guy that can set a physical edge, which he did very well at Oregon. I think he's a guy that if he catches you flat-footed as a tackle, catch you sleeping, he can get to the quarterback, a little bit of a bull rush, also a little speed to power. He can go a little speed around the edge. Then as soon as you start looking for the speed, he goes speed to power, and he can really get you on your heels and get you backpedaling. But there's not a move Rolodex. There's no plan. He doesn't win very often. He's more of a hustle guy that'll clean up somebody else's mess that they made. So, there's pressure off the left side. Quarterback steps up. There's a collapsing pocket. He tries to vacate to the right. Boom, he runs into Jordan Burch. Look what I found, right? But, I was looking so hard because I'm like, he isn't the archetype defensive end edge rusher. Like, a lot of teams aren't looking for 6'4", 280-pound edge rusher. Like, that's a specific, set. Like, that's a specific defense, specific skill set I'm looking for. And I thought about one of the guys that jumped out at me back when he was selected in the first round. And I was like, I remember watching his tape and I was not blown away. And you go back and watch my Draft Prospects 101 series from that season, year when he was drafted. I want to say it was probably 2021, maybe 2020. But my comp for Jordan Burch is Keon White, the former Georgia Tech edge rusher who was drafted in the first round by the New England Patriots. Didn't have a ton of production, but he was a super athletic guy at that size. I think Keion White was like 6'5", 278, 81 or something like that. Crazy, tremendous athlete at that size, but limited production at Georgia Tech. But the Patriots felt like he was going to project at the next level, and he's been really solid for them. But I don't think he's ever met the ceiling of a first round pick. But that said, Jordan Burch strikes me as another one of these Keion White type dudes. Really tremendous athlete, big size. Just depending on where you put him, right? I just think he's got to go to the right fit for the right team where it makes sense for him. Because again, not every team is looking for a 6'4", 280-pound edge, right? For some teams that might be too heavy, they might be looking for a more athletically gifted guy, smaller. He's versatile though, is Burch. I think you can move him around, and I think that's what's ultimately going to be something that intrigues him to teams. It will be intriguing for teams with him is his versatility, because I think you can move him around at 6'4", 280. So, and he's a really good athlete at that. Just not a lot in the move Rolodex right now, and there's no real off the charts trait, right? Yeah, he's big, a little powerful, got a little quickness, but not anything that absolutely jumps out at you. And I think he is Keion White as a comp. Going to number 16 on my list of edge rushers, you will find Arkansas edge rusher Landon Jackson, 6'6", 264. I think if you've seen him, he's a unique looking individual because he has alopecia, just like Josh Dobbs, right? Joshua Dobbs. So on the field, really solid football player. Another one of these try hard guys, physical, doesn't necessarily move the needle athleticism wise, but tested really well at the combine. But I don't think it necessarily translates onto the field in terms of him really showing true athletic dominance. I think he is a good athlete, but I don't think it's anything special. And I don't know if it necessarily translates on the field. That said, at 6'6", 264, that's tremendous size and length, which is what you look for at the position. Again, he's the prototypical base 4-3 defensive end and an even front. And I don't necessarily see high-level starter out of Landon Jackson, but I do see a low-level starter. I do see a high-level backup. So it just, again, I don't think you're getting in any given season any more than 8 sacks might be a max for him, and that might be pushing it. He strikes me as a guy that you'll feel good about if he gets you 6 sacks in a rotational, role as one of your defensive ends. Can you start Landon Jackson? Sure, you can. But are you going to be maximizing that position if you're doing so? Absolutely not. And so for me, he is a solid athlete. The athleticism isn't, off the charts. Can he win with speed? Yeah. If he catches a tackle flat-footed, if a tackle gets off the snap late, yeah, he can win, right? I've seen him turn the corner on some of these guys. And he plays in the SEC, so you got to respect it when he does turn the corner. But not all SEC tackles are created equal either. So I can tell you this much. There's nothing special to Landon Jackson. But he is a good dude. He's going to be great in the locker room. He's got a great story. And he's going to give you everything that he's got every single time he steps on the field. And you love guys like that. There's a place in the league for guys like that. And my comp for him is Clelin Ferrell. He's literally a doppelganger of Clelin Ferrell from a mentality standpoint. Like, people love Clelin Ferrell being on their roster because he's a good dude. He works hard. He's a good leader, got those leadership qualities, going to be a guy that's sort of a glue guy in a locker room that's going to bring people together, That's what Landon Jackson brings to the table. And he's just a really good, solid football player. He's a pro's pro, right? You get Landon Jackson, day one, you're getting a guy that's going to come in there and he's going to lead by example. He's going to go in there and he's going to work hard and be one of the hardest working guys you have. And it sets an example for other young guys on the roster. It sets an example for even some of the veterans like, hey, this young guy's working this hard. I need to be working hard. And that's what Clelin Ferrell has been his entire career. And he mirrors that on the field and off the field. So I see him as a Clelin Ferrell type player. And Ferrell went top, 5 in his draft, which was an overdraft. Everyone knew it. But the Raiders were trying to set the tone for what type of player they were looking for. And it was a guy that was going to come in, high character, high level of work ethic, and, maximum effort on every snap. And that's what Landon Jackson is. Right. Going to number 15, and I spoke of him earlier. This is a guy with tremendous talent, but just disappointing that it's not more consistent. I talk about Ole Miss edge rusher Prince Umanmielen, right? So 6'4" and 3/8, 244 pounds. Prince Umanmielen is one of the most smooth and pure speed pass rushers in this draft. He's got a very beautiful speed duck and turn pass rush move where it's so quick, it's so fluid that if he gets one of these tall 6'7" tackles that are heavy-legged waist benders, shout out to Mike Mayock, but if he gets one of these heavy-legged waist benders who can't bend at the knees, but instead bends at the waist, you're not going to be able to block him when he gets to that speed rush, ducks that corner, plants and turns. He runs that arc like nobody's business. And when it hits, it's quick and it's painless. That shit is over in a matter of a fraction of a second. It is over. That tackle stands no chance when Prince Umanmielen decides I'm going to try to get to the quarterback on this play. But there are rushes where I watch him and I just go, bro, I just watched you devour this guy. What in the hell was that right there? And this will go on for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rushes at a time. And then it's like he just decides, okay, I'm going to go get the quarterback now. And then he goes and gets him. And I'm just like, bro, you could have done that 6 snaps ago, right? Or at least with that same level of tenacity, right? And so when he decides to rush, he wins. The problem is, how many of these rushes am I getting from you throughout the course of a game anyway? And it's not like they're not rushing him. He's just not rushing like that on every snap, which to me says that there's no plan. Like, okay, so you got a fastball and it's a damn good one. I mean, this is a fastball with movement here. You just need one pitch off of it. Give me a spin. Give me a crossover. Give me something else that you can get the tackle thinking about so that speed becomes even more lethal. If he doesn't win with that speed, it's just a bull rush. And I need him to develop a little bit of a plan. I need him to be more consistent with his rushes. But boy, when he turns it up and he decides to go with that fastball, with that cut fastball with that late movement, oh my God, man, he is a problem. A little undersized, obviously, at 244 pounds. You can get the job done. He's solid against the run. I think he leaves a little bit to be desired, which is why he's a little bit further down my list. That and the fact that the pass rush isn't as consistent. But boy, when he's got it going, when he decides, I'm getting to the quarterback on this play. Look out. My comp for him is a guy that I remember coming out of the U, super talented, has had his moments in the league, but has never fully tapped into the talent that I thought he had, which was Al-Quadin Muhammad. I think he is now with the Indianapolis Colts. That was where he played some of his best football. He might still be with the Saints. I think the last time I saw him, he was with the Saints. He's been all over the place, it feels like, the last maybe, I'd say the two places he's been is New Orleans and Indy. But long defender, sort of undersized, really good athlete. Had more to give, but just never ever really truly put it together. Some of his best years, I believe, were in Indianapolis, where again, I just talked about Emmanuel Agba, that arrow trending upwards. There was a time where Al Qadim Muhammad's arrow was trending up, where you go, wait a minute, he might have figured it out. I think he had gotten as high as like maybe 6.5 sacks or so one year with Indy, and then it just fizzled out, right? That's what's going to happen to Prince Umanmielen if he doesn't stay consistent. I think he's got double-digit sack potential in this league. That's the kind of talent he has. But the consistency is what's going to ultimately determine if he can turn that corner, get to double-digit sacks, or will he just be a 6-7 sack guy, 3 or 4 times in his career and not much else, right? And he's got to get a little bit stronger. And I think if he puts on a little bit of weight, gets to 252, gets stronger, more physical at the point of attack, now you're an every down defensive player. Don't have to pull you off the field. Don't feel like you're a defensive liability when teams look to try to run at you. And he's shown the ability to be physical against the run. He'll stick his nose in there, stick that shoulder in there, be physical, but he needs to be a little bit more physical there. So that's number 15. Number 14 on my list is South Carolina edge rusher Kyle Canard, 6'4", 254 pounds. He's one of these guys, super productive in college at South Carolina. You watch him, doesn't seem like there's anything necessarily special to his game. One of these rough, rugged edge rushers who's just going to be relentless around the edge. I made the mistake of looking at a guy that has similar traits and characteristics as of a Kyle Canard and dismissing him. I tried to put him in the white guy box. I told you that thing we do when we see a white dude and we automatically want to comp him to another white dude because God forbid we comp a white guy to a black guy or vice versa, right? So I did the white thing, right? Oh, okay. George Karlaftis is Ryan Kerrigan because they both went to Purdue and he's white and he's not super athletic. So yeah, he's Kerrigan, which is not a bad thing, right? Over 100 sacks in his NFL career, but Karlaftis is different. He's different. And I liken Kyle Canard to George Karlaftis. He's going to set a physical edge in the run game. He's going to be tough and rough and rugged there. So you don't worry about him in the run game. He's going to be a relentless pass rusher, right? And every now and again, he'll beat you with speed, but that's not really his thing. He's really more of a brute force guy. But when he catches you sleeping, he's got a beautiful latch and snatch, right? Grab your ass, shake you, pull himself towards the quarterback. And that's an underrated move in the NFL. Not a lot of guys utilize it because, again, a lot of these guys want to try to run by you and they forget the art of hand fighting. And there's the art of knocking down hands, and then there's the art of being first to the punch, like a boxer, right? As an edge rusher, you don't want the tackle to clamp onto you, right? So that's where the hand fighting comes in. Get his hands off of you before they even get on you, because a lot of times these guys have that G.I. Joe Kung Fu grip. They grab your ass and you're not going anywhere, right? Well, sometimes you can catch them off guard because if they lock on and you shake them a little bit, right, you can yank them. And they're not expecting that because not a lot of guys do that. And you'll thrust yourself towards the quarterback or the running back or whomever has the ball. And Kyle Canard has a very good, I call it latch and snatch. Latch and then snatch himself and pull himself towards the quarterback. So he's got a little bit of that. Karlaftis has a little bit of that. Karlaftis has a little bit of that smackdown Aaron Donald game where you jump in the air and you slap down the hands of the tackle. And it also catapults you towards the quarterback as well. So I see a lot of similarities between he and George Karlaftis. Karlaftis surprised me. Remember, Karlaftis was a first-round pick by the Kansas City Chiefs. I didn't see it with Karlaftis. He was one of those guys that I just dismissed and wasn't athletic enough. The production was there, but the tape didn't scream at me. And sometimes, again, you can't measure what's behind the rib cage, right? What's behind the chest plate. And Canard strikes me as one of those guys that's going to come in here And it's not going to be pretty, but you look up and he's got 8.5 sacks. You look up and in a pivotal game, he's got a sack and a half, 2 sacks. You're like, I don't know what the hell's going on right now, but Kyle Canard is absolutely giving this team the business. He strikes me as one of those dudes. Really solid, not going to wow you with anything from an athleticism standpoint. He's solid size, right? But he's not 265 with long arms. But everything that he does it at maximum effort. And again, he's got a sneaky way of getting to the quarterback, right? Sneaky way of getting to the quarterback. I think he's got a chance to be really solid in this league. He's my number 14 pass rusher. You go number 13. And this is a guy that, if you're a Commanders fan, we've had quite a bit of conversation about. And somebody said something to me that was very profound the other day. And I thank that person. I don't remember who it was in particular, but they told me, hey, so before we get into any of that, the number 13 edge rusher is Olu Femi Olio, edge rusher out of UCLA. Goes by Femi, right? Olu Femi Olio. Femi Olio is 6'3", 259, so roughly 6'3", 260. He's making the transition from linebacker, off the ball backer, to strictly edge rusher, to a defensive end. So this was his first year. You could tell he was somewhat robotic and mechanical in his movements, especially when they ran read option at him. His job is to stay at home. You could tell that was drilled into his head. Hey, your job on the backside of read option is to stay at home and force that quarterback to give the ball to the running back. And he was so worried about doing his job that you could see he would freeze and he would just stand there, and they would run a jet sweep right by his face and he wouldn't move. Like, all right, I'm guarding my spot, right? Or they would give the ball to the running back on read option, and running back would already be going through the first wave of defenders and he still hasn't moved yet. Now he's trying to track it down from the backside. So you can see a lot of thinking going on, but it's his first year. So you have to take that into consideration. But what the person said to me was, because I was one of the people that was killing Olu Femi Olio because I just didn't see it. The 2 games that I watched in particular, I just didn't see it. And he said, go watch him against Penn State. Because I always tell y'all, if you want to see the best in a player, go watch them when they're at their best. Because that's going to tell you if they've got a chance to be. And that's why a lot of people love watching highlights, right? I don't like watching strictly highlights. I really don't like watching highlights at all, because that's not football, right? Like, when I say that, I mean, putting all of someone's good plays in sequence is great for you to see what that person is at their best. But I want to see what happens when there's adverse situations throughout a game. You might have had a penalty here. You might have gotten beat here. You might have tried this. It didn't work. All right, let me see if you learn from your mistake throughout the course of the game, right? They might be running at you, and you might get sick of it, and you say, no, this shit ain't happening on my watch. And then I want to see you just take a tight end, throw his ass 2 yards into the backfield and say, hey, y'all gonna stop running at me, right? Like I'm some sort of weakling. Like, I want to see that. Now, you're not going to see that in a highlight tape, right? So, but you want to see a guy playing his best, right? If a guy has a 2-sack game, I want to see that game, right? He had 2 sacks, a pass deflected, and another tackle for loss. So that's 3 total tackles for loss, a pass defended, right? 2 quarterback. I want to see that game. I want to see that game, because this is you at your best, right? What was this? Because you might have had 10 sacks this year, but then I go and I sit down and I watch, and 8 of those sacks were, great coverage down the field, quarterback hold on to the ball too long, somebody else got great pressure, you cleaned up the sack. Like, those are cool, but that doesn't translate. Did you just beat somebody off the snap? Did you take a guy and put his dick in the dirt? And I watched Olu Femi Olio in that Penn State game as I was instructed, and that person was right. And it changed my whole thought process on Femi Olio, because what I saw in that game was a guy that has the athleticism to win off the edge, like pure speed and burst, to win off the edge. He's got that Aaron Donald jump sweep move down pat, right? I mean, he was kicking the Penn State tackles. And again, that Penn State tackle just might have been ass, right? But again, this is the thing. We always talk about NFL tackles like they're all, all pro tackles. No, they're NFL caliber tackle, but just because you're in the NFL doesn't mean you're not ass, right? There's still tackles that aren't very good that you can take advantage of. They're just better than the college tackles you were taking advantage of. But he was winning consistently with that move. Then he showed me a spin move in that game. I went, wait a minute. Then they tried to run the ball on him, which he's just not having any parts of. Did a great job. And you could tell this was where his linebacker background came from. He was locking out, pressing guys, inside arm, bow, lockout press, keep that tackle off of him, right? Keep that tight end off of him, outside arm free. So now I can go make a play if they decide to bounce it, right? Then they tried to run counter to his way. So the tackle from the opposite side of the field came pulling to his side. And he blew that tackle up, right? Pushed his ass about 1.5 yards into the backfield. Running back had to stop his feet, try to figure out where to go. Now the congregation had arrived, gotten him on the ground. He was absolutely disruptive in that game to the highest degree. And I said, okay, I see it now. I get it. And this is why I talk about it's important to watch guys in their element when they're playing their best football, but it's also key to know some of the background information. First time playing the position, making it. So that means there's tremendous upside, right? The arrow is pointing upwards. And I saw it. They moved him around too, had him some of everywhere there defensively. They even played him at defensive tackle a couple of snaps. He was problematic against Penn State. So I still think that his comp is Dorrance Armstrong, but I think he could evolve into a more advanced version of Dorrance Armstrong. Like, I don't know if Dorrance Armstrong ever gets you 10 sacks. He's come close, 8.5. I think it was this high in Dallas. I think he had 6.5 last year, but he had some moments like where they kicked him inside, and I could see Olu Femi Olio having some of that in him. But the question will be, can he consistently find his way to the quarterback? We'll find out. But his 3-cone was 6.92, if I'm not mistaken. Really good number, which tells you he can turn that corner. No, not him. It wasn't him. That went to Donovan Izaraku. So I'll be interested to see what Oladipo did at that, because I haven't checked to see what he did at the UCLA Pro Day, if he did anything there, what type of numbers he posted there, if in fact he did anything. But he's intriguing because remember I talked about this with the running back Smith out of TCU, Brashard Smith, and I said you can either look at it glass half full or glass half empty because of the 1 year of experience. Most evaluators, if you love a guy, it's glass half full. Oh my God, he's just scratching the surface. What do you think he's going to look like 3 years from now? What do you think he's going to look like when we get our hands on him and we are able to coach him up? And he's already able to do all of this stuff. Then glass half full, if you don't love a guy, you talk about the lack of production, you talk about his stiffness, you talk about him thinking too much, he's not reactive, he's not proactive, he's reactive, et cetera, and you can beat him up on all that stuff. But I see it. I see the vision. I understand why he's intriguing. And there's talent there, man. Again, that speed around the edge, there's an explosive first couple of steps with him. And then it coupled with the rip down jump move, that Aaron Donald signature special, that shit is lethal if you know how to use it. And he knows how to use it. And then he flashed the spin move. It could use a little bit more fluidity, but the fact that he did it, that shows me that he's piecing together different moves, right? It's not just going to be that one rush, speed rush. It's not just going to be power. I can drop in a spin. Next thing you know, he's going to be crossing over, right? He's not ready. He's not there yet, right? But eventually that hard outside crossover back inside move, right? Now you got a direct path to the quarterback. Either you're going to have to hold you, or that quarterback's going to have to flush, or you're going to get you a sack, right? So I like him a lot more than I did before I watched that Penn State game. I get it now. He's my number 13 edge rusher. Number 12 on this list is Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M, 6'3", 257. When I first watched him, I went in with these negative preconceptions because of what people had told me about Nick Scorton, you know. And so I always like to do the work for myself. And when I went in, I was pleasantly surprised at what I saw. I saw a rough, rugged, tough SEC edge rusher who could play off the ball, who could line up as an edge rusher, who quite often did that, but could move around, drop into coverage, be a menace there. Just enough coverage ability to be dangerous, but nothing super special there. But, you know, not a fish out of water when he's asked to drop at a 90-degree angle under a hook zone, or, you know, get into the flats and be disruptive, or, you know, see a shallow cross behind him and match it, right? So you see that capability, but then when he jumps on the line of scrimmage, shock and violence in his hands, to be really physical at the point of attack with tight ends and tackles. You see a guy with just enough juice to get around the edge, right? Again, nothing extraordinarily special from a juice standpoint, but it's enough, right? It's not the type of juice where you're like, there's no way he's like Landon Jackson, to me, doesn't have enough juice to win at the NFL level consistently. He'll get there every now and again, but it's not consistent, right? Jack Sawyer doesn't have enough juice to win consistently in the NFL, right? He'll get there every now and again, but it's just not consistent, right? Nick Scorton has enough juice that he can consistently win. Will he get there, turn the corner? I don't know if he has enough juice to beat a tackle initially and turn the corner. See, the thing about NFL tackles, what makes them different from collegiate tackles, when collegiate tackles get beat oftentimes that aren't very good, they can't recover and rebound and push a guy around the pocket and allow the quarterback to step up or step out. Right? They just get beat. That guy flattens to the quarterback and it's a sack. At the NFL level, these guys are tremendous athletes. They're longer armed individuals. You weed out all the 32 and 3/4 inch armed guys. Those guys aren't starting in the NFL. You know, that tackle now is 33 and 3/4 inch arms, 34 inch arms, 35 inch arms. That tackle has 33.5 inch arms. And so just when you thought it was safe to try to flatten and turn that corner, he's going to rebound because he's a better athlete. He's going to push you up the field. And you got to have that extra bit of juice to turn that corner, right? Scorton has just enough juice to turn that corner and get to the quarterback, get his hands on him, and be disruptive. And so there was a lot to like with him, man. And I see his game because, again, because he was asked to do so much at the collegiate level for Texas A&M. He was a jack of all trades. I need you to drop into coverage. I need you to rush. I need you to set a physical edge. I need you to move around. I need you to be a presence everywhere. I need to see 11 everywhere. If you were to just say to him, hey, bro, I just want you to rush, I could see him turning into Matthew Judon. That is my comp for him. From a size standpoint, from a move standpoint, from a grittiness standpoint, from a juice standpoint. Matthew Judon wasn't the fastest or most athletic guy, but he had just enough juice to be a problem off that edge. And then when you thought it was safe, he would use power, right? Jack you up. And he could stop the run and set a physical edge. And he was comfortable in space. I see a lot of Matthew Judon, high-level Matthew Judon, New England Matthew Judon, right? Matthew Judon, right? I see a lot of that in Nick Scorton. And so, again, fit is going to be key for him. Goes to a place that utilizes him in that way, and I think he could turn into Matthew Judon. They decide that they want to use him as a jack of all trades. I don't know if he reaches his full potential in this league. So, number 11 on my list And this is one of those projection guys. He's a lot lower on my list than most lists that I've seen. Shamar Stewart, Texas A&M edge rusher, 6'5", 267 pounds. He was teammates with Nick Scorton. That was a hell of a defensive line that they had at Texas A&M. There's going to be 3 of them drafted this year. Probably relatively high, I may add. Probably day 1 or 2 picks. Here's one of those guys that may be a day 1 pick in Shamar Stewart. I personally don't see it. I'm gonna be honest with you. But he is one of those height, weight, speed specimens that I think evaluators look at and say, okay, he's got talent. We can work with him, right? We can get the most out of this guy. And again, that's where the athletic arrogance that I talk about comes into play. Because as a coach, you got to feel like I'm good enough to get this guy's best out of him. And if I get his best, we're talking about a guy that can be a game wrecker, right? Because Shamar Stewart has that type of athletic profile. At 6'5", damn near 270, moving the way that he does on the football field. The numbers obviously don't favor, him being a first-round pick. I don't think he's ever had more than a sack and a half in any given season in his career. That said, when you look at his profile, his DNA profile, and you look at the measurables and everything that he brings to the table, I think that coaches are just going to say, no. We know that this guy's talented, and we feel like we can get, the most out of him. Again, I'm more practical when it comes to this type of stuff. I need to see it. And I didn't see anything on the field necessarily that stood out to me other than his athleticism, which he does have. I can't deny that. But there was no move. There was no plan. There was no disruption. There were times when he got into the backfield, but my whole problem with Shamar Stewart, and this is where I really struggle, is when you're playing with guys the caliber which he was playing. All right. I just told you that 3 of those guys are going to be drafted probably within the first 2 days of the draft. There's a defensive tackle with the same name, like Shamar something. Let me see if I can track him down. See if I can track down that tackle. There's a Shamar Turner. So there's Shamar Turner. He's going to be drafted. There's Shamar Stewart. He's going to be drafted. And then there's Nick Scorton. These are all Texas A&M defenders that are all going to be drafted that are on that defensive line. When you're around that much talent, I just expect you to be able to get a few more sacks, a few more opportunities to make plays just based off of the talent that's around you. Nick Scorton wins off the edge. Quarterback has to step up. Whoa, look what I found, right? Shamar Turner wins on the inside, or he's collapsed in the pocket. Quarterback has nowhere to go. Oh, look what I found, right? And that just didn't happen for him enough for me. And it's almost like a corner. Like, there's no reason you shouldn't have a interception in your collegiate career if you've started for more than 2 years. If you were a 3-year starter in college football and you have no interceptions, that's a problem for me, because even the guys that don't get targeted for a reason. That's because they picked the ball off and teams say, you know what? It's probably not smart to go in that direction. Because if you're not picking the ball off, what's stopping me from throwing the ball at you? You're not going to make me pay for it. So I can keep trying my hand over there. I can try my luck, because the worst case scenario is going to be an incomplete pass. You're not going to pick it off. But once you start taking the ball away, that's going to deter me from throwing the football. But guess what? I've already got interceptions by then. That's why I was nervous about guys like Mackenzie Alexander and Benjamin St. Juste, because you play too much football not to get your hands on the football in college. It just is asinine. Same thing here. You've played too much football around too many good players to not have more production than that. That's scary. With the athletic profile that he has, that's scary to me. But somebody's going to draft him, in my estimation, overdraft him. But we'll see. He might turn out to be an absolute stud at the NFL level. But this is one of those projection things that I struggle with. I struggle with this. So He's my number 11. My comp for him is Marcus Davenport. And I felt like that's another one of those DNA matches where Davenport was this extremely athletically gifted, edge rusher out of UTSA, drafted in the first round by the New Orleans Saints, was expecting this dude to just be a game wrecker. It never came to fruition. He had the athleticism, he had the size. And again, the arrow was pointing up, but the injuries really beset him at the NFL level. Hasn't been able to stay healthy. And that's really been his downfall. We'll see what happens with Shamar Stewart. Can he show teams that there's more to the Shamar Stewart package than what meets the eye while at Texas A&M? Right now, I've got my doubts. He's number 11. And then we get to the last guy we'll talk about today, my number 10 pass rusher in this year's draft class is Ashton Gillette out of Louisville, 6'3", 264. I'm excited watching him. I went back, watched him in 2023. I remember when the Fighting Irish played against Louisville in 2023, he was a little bit of a problem in that game. So went back, watched him in 2023. He's a little bit heavier in 2023. So I wanted to see how he looked in 2024 with, a little bit better shape. Could he be as physical as he was against the run the year prior? The answer was yes. And he carried the 264 well. Now, again, that might be combine, weight, where he put on a little bit of weight to look, to weigh in and give the impression that, this is the size I played at. Then, because he didn't do anything on the field at the combine. Then he went to the combine or the Louisville Pro Day and blew it up, right? Had impressive numbers. I think he might have cut weight, right? So I think he put on weight to say, hey, I can be stout at the point of attack at 264. But he didn't play at 264 this year. He looked like he was 264 back in 2023. He looked like he's about 255 this past year at Louisville, right? Still stopped the run, still extremely physical against the run, did everything that I needed to see from him there. But I like him as a pass rusher. There's variance to what he brings to the table. He's got a speed move, he's got a bull rush, and he's got a crossover, right? Spin still, in the works, but there's variance to what he brings to the table. There's juice. You can see it. It's live. And the guy that I comped him to, I think there are a lot of similarities because I remember seeing him, and you can go back and watch the Draft Prospects one-on-one series from when he came out. I love this guy. And I said, it may take a little time because he's still putting the package together, but if he figures it out, he could be a problem. And that's Jonathan Canard, now of the Minnesota Vikings. He's coming off his second consecutive 12-sack season after the first couple of seasons were okay. He had one season in there where you saw it. Then he went back to being, sort of, a marginal pass rusher. Then he explodes in his final year in Houston. He goes to Minnesota, does the exact same thing for the Vikings, and he's figured it out now. He knows the art of winning at the NFL level. This Jonathan Canard. I see a lot of similarities: size, speed, quickness, putting it together, right? One of the questions about Canard was, could he consistently stop the run? I thought he did that well enough at Florida. Then he came into the league. That was something teams wanted to test him on. He was able to pass that test. That gave him an opportunity to then be on the field in those critical moments to get to the quarterback. He's done that, and he's figured it out. And I think Ashton Gillette can be the same type of guy. You might not jump onto the scene in year one and give you 8 sacks, right? Or even 6 for that matter. It might be 4.5 year one. I wouldn't be shocked if you got 9 in year 2, right? And then by the time we get to year 3, he's one of these dudes that's flirting around double digits every year, right? He's got that type of talent. Like I said, with Canard. Took Canard, I think his second season, I think Canard might have been hovering around double digits. Then he dipped in year 3, right? Went back up in year 4, and then went to Minnesota and kept it going his first year in Minnesota. So I see that in Ashton Gillette. I really think he's got a chance to be really, really good. One of the more underrated pass rushers, I believe, in this year's draft class. So he is my number 10 pass rusher. So that is going to do it for my list today. We'll come back tomorrow. I'll give you my top 9 edge rushers in this draft class. A lot of talent in this draft from an edge rushing standpoint. Will it be maximized, and where will these guys end up? Because that's going to ultimately determine how well they play at the next level, right? Anyway, I digress. I think I got one comment here that we'll get to, and then we'll get out of here. Mike Jink, thank you for being a member of the MOBB for 29 months. Lemon Pepper Lou, what's good, my guy? What's going on, Mike Jink? Have you seen the edge from Boston College? I'm going to call him Donovan E. Yes, Donovan as a Raku. We'll be talking about him tomorrow. We'll be talking about him tomorrow. Yes, I have seen him, and I think he's going to end up being a first-round pick when it's all said and done. He'll be a first-round pick. Whether it's mid-first or late first, I don't think he gets past your Philadelphia Eagles. They just lost Josh Sweat. They're going to need a replacement. I think they see him as a guy that could potentially be that, right? Even if they see him as a Bryce Huff replacement, because I don't see Bryce Huff lasting too much longer on that roster. They were very disappointed in what they got out of him last year. They're probably ready to move on. If they could find a trade partner, they probably would have already moved him, but the value is very low on him right now, and the money that you guys invested in him is not ideal in terms of a trade unless you're willing to eat some of that money. So I could see Izaraku being a guy that's on the Eagles' radar for sure. So I don't see him getting out of the first round. I'll just say that. But we'll talk more about him and some of the other pass rushers in this list, or on this list rather, tomorrow. With that said, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the 2025 NFL Draft Prospects 101 series, Edge Rushers Volume 2. We'll be back with Volume 1 tomorrow, and then we will make our way to the wide receiver position, as that is our next stop. So you guys have a good one. Take care. I'm going to be back multiple times today. This is going to be a busy day as we have turned the calendar to April. I have a Washington show for you, and I also have a podcast probably going to take place later on tonight. Lots of things to get to, so we're going to tackle all of them today. So I look forward to chopping up with you guys for the command post, which I'm going to try to fire up here in the next 20 minutes or so, hopefully, and then LouieTeeNetwork podcast later on this evening. So I'll see you guys for that. Until then, you guys have a good one. See you tomorrow when we'll clean up the rest of this list and look to move on to the wide receiver position. Until then, you guys have a good one. Take care. Peace.